On it goes. You have to complete a full cycle with one of these blues, do you? You have to get all the way through a full one before you can stop. It's rude to stop a blues mid-cycle, but that is a very long cycle of blues. Folks, how you doing? My name's Nick Jennison. It's the Monday Guitar Show. I'm sorting my hair out because I've come straight from the gym, as we are wont to do on these sort of occasions. And I've picked the Maybach off the wall going, do you know what, man, this guitar's a sweetie and I haven't played it in a very long time on stream. I found out mid-intro that it's developed an issue with the volume pot, so yeah, had a little bit of a, maybe let's say less output than than I was expecting, but here we are all the same. If you're new here, welcome. It's good to have you. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk about the guitar, and specifically we are talking about the most fundamental change in all of Western music, which we will just henceforth say as music, because we assume that you're not playing some, let's say, some traditional Eastern style or something like that. So in Western music, the most fundamental chord change. We'll get to what that is in a second. We do this every week. We hang out, we chat about the guitar, it's a good time. We talk about the guitars that we're playing, and our objective is, as usual, to make you, dear viewer, a slightly better guitar player when you leave us than you were when you arrived. And today we're talking again about that really important set of chord changes that just underpins all of Western music. All of music, for want of a better word. Certainly from our Western perspective. So we're going to say some hellos. Before we do, I want to remind you that today's stream is brought to you by our friends at licklibrary.com and Guitar Interactive Magazine. Go to licklibrary.com for all of your lesson needs. So many lessons you won't know what to do with it, but that's okay, because we also have someone on hand, Stu Shields, to guide you through your lesson decision-making process. We have learning paths. We have all sorts of one-to-one and automated coaching protocols that will help you get the best out of your Lick Library experience. I mean, what a wonderful problem to have, that we've got too many lessons. We don't know what to do with them. Too many lessons. Nobody knows how to make their way through all of these lessons that we've got. It's a nice problem to have, let me tell you, and we've got the solution to that problem as well. Go to Guitar Interactive Magazine as well while we're on this subject, for guitarinteractivemagazine.com, that is, for all of your needs when it comes to gear news, reviews, interviews, all that good non-lesson related stuff. Let's say some hellos. I want to know which guitars you're playing, because we've got some lovely guitars in the chat. As I previously mentioned, I am playing this guitar. This is still my favourite. This is my Maybach. I'm saying it as Maybach because that's how they pronounce it. It is a German word. I've said Maybach for the longest time, but it is the Maybach Convair 59H. This is a Nick Page original design. It's a beaut. It needs a clean, but it is, ooh, geez, is it my favourite guitar? Maybe. It's tied with the red guitar, which is my #1 PRS. I love them both. Don't make me pick. Don't make me pick. But this is one of my favourites. This is the one I took off the wall today, put it that way. I'm making a point of playing my favourite guitars more, because I have this awful habit of looking at guitars that are my favourites, air quotes, and going, oh, well, I play that one all the time, so I'll play something else. Terrible. And then I end up not playing my favourite guitars, like the aforementioned, very beautiful, sadly very beaten up, but that's had a life, the red guitar. Anyway, let's say hellos, let's see what guitars you guys are playing, and then we'll talk about the subject. Sacred Godslayer's first here, followed closely by Marcin and PJ. Response Audio's in the house, Larry Warren's here, Helmet Straps tuning in. Helmet Straps playing a blue Chris Robertson PRS SE. Very cool neck profile, I agree. It's an interesting neck profile, isn't it? I think it's kind of, it's similar to the wide fat, but the wide fat keeps changing. I have like 4 PRS that supposedly have the wide fat neck, and they all feel different. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, man, like, great feeling neck. Can concur. Kim's tuning in, playing his Andy Timmons signature Ibanez. Very cool. Nick Harrison's here. Kate Strange is playing a Jackson Rhodes. We like a bit of that, let me tell you. Cranky Tom is tuning in with his Les Paul Custom Classic. Love a bit of that. John Sykes. Very cool, very cool. My friend Mickey's got one of those. I had one of those. I love that guitar. I think he got rid of it for a gold top, and I wish he hadn't, because I really dug that guitar. This guitar, to my mind, has a little bit of that John Sykes magic with the metal pickguard. It's different, but it's got a little bit of that going on, which we like. We got a vintage PRS CE24, very cool. Mike Seedorf's tuning in, playing a Solar with a Duncan Little 59 and JB4 bridge, very cool. Tim of the Apple is tuning in live. I thought I hadn't seen you for a while, mate. It's good to have you back. Neck and Neck is here, lovely to see you. Catman Do 1962 is tuning in with his Fender American Pro 2 Strat, super cool. Mark McNish here. Block 18 is playing the Baum Wingman. Right, Baum Wingman, we love a bit of that. I got my back wing. I'm going to add a Wingman to the collection at some point too, because they're so friggin' cool. And I don't have a guitar with a Bigsby, and I feel like that's probably the one. Citizen 741X is in the house, playing his old RG 770. Love a bit of that. Timothy Appling, nice intro, Nick. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Nick and I are going on my Ibanez. Oh, hi, Nick. Sorry, I digress. Hi, Nick and gang. My Ibanez Dragon's Eye Burst S series. Very, very cool. Our friend Paul's in the house. Dreams with the ever-evolving gamer tag. My friend Richard's tuning in. Hey, I know what you're talking about. Right, we'll talk about that in a second. Good to see you. Fog Cornish is here. Who else do we have? Citizen. Oh, yeah, Citizen 741X. There's I wouldn't say beautiful by the standards you guys have got. I guess they're referring to the Ibanez. That is what you said you were playing, wasn't it? Yeah, the Ibanez RG770. I think those guitars are very beautiful. My worn old 550, I think, is very beautiful. We love a bit of that. We got a Morgan Merlin, super cool guitar. Very, very esoteric British builder. Don't know what it is about British manufacturers. I know it's the guy's name. I know it's Neil Morgan, but I don't know what it is about British manufacturers of guitars and cars that want to call themselves Morgan. Very cool. Love a bit of that. I'm just going to make sure we've got everyone. Trevor Hutchin is tuning in. Great to see you from Tenerife. Sounds nice. Sounds lovely. Bit warmer than Macamland. Let me friggin' tell you, right? I'm going there on Wednesday. It's always colder in Sunderland than it is at my house. My house is on the coast as well. I don't know what the story is. Simon 3 Hodges playing his Ibanez JS1000. Very cool. Bill is tuning in as well. Last couple. I'm going to get this wrong. Tlaka, I believe, is playing a Jackson with Seymour Duncans. Super cool. We've got a Northwest Guitars parts caster with an X2N. Very interesting choice. X2N, super cool. Look at a bit of that. That's a big old pickup. It's interesting that it works with the 24K, 250K pot. That's a fascinating thing. Have you tried doing the pot value hack, I guess you can call it? So anybody's interested in this is something I want to do in an HSS Strat soon, where you take a 500k pot, which traditionally, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, let me just clarify. Humbuckers, they tend to like 500k pots, 500k ohm resistance. Single coils tend to like 250k pots. That's the distinction here. Now what you can do is you can use a 500k pot that keeps the humbucker happy, which is too bright for the single coils, but then you can wire resistors in line to the single coils, so the single coils behave as if they're plugged into a 500k pot. It works surprisingly well. Very cool. There are lots of tutorials out there on the subject. I would maybe give that a go if you're feeling wiring inclined. Report back, let us know how you get on. So anyway, on with the show. Now today we are discussing the most important chord change in all of music, and I'm going to begin by making the case for why this is the most important chord change in all of music. When I say music, remember we're talking about Western music here. So the chord change in question is the 5-1 chord change. Now this is, in the key of E, a B chord. Oh, this volume pot, I think it's bit the dust, but we'll try. Oh, that's a shame. We'll soldier on. So 5-1 chord change, B going to E, B to E. This is true in B, in the key of E minor, and also in the key of E major. And it also happens if the one chord is dominant, which is the neither major nor minor. It's the major third, minor seventh setup in a blues, where we get this business where we go. Now, the reason this works is because all of music, and I mean all of music in this instance, is set up in such a way, or it's based on this idea of tension, let's say, and resolution. We've heard this idea loads. We've talked about this on stream where we've talked about phrasing with creating tension and creating resolution in your phrasing. What it ultimately is it's creating forward movement, then it's creating rest. Creating movement, then creating rest. We can use this analogy of stable versus unstable sounds to describe this. So we can have a stable sound that is feeling very comfortable, very restful, very just everything's chill, which is the example of our one chord, which is, say, for example, in the key of E major is here. We could live in that chord all day, but if we go here, this chord has propulsion. This chord wants to do things. It wants to go places. That is a chord that is telling us loud and clear, Nick, I want you to get off me. I want you to get off this chord. This chord wants us to leave it to go somewhere else, and the place it wants us to go to, the somewhere else, is the one. Now, if we trace ourselves back in time, trace ourselves back to, say, for example, the Baroque period or the Classical period, you found, I'm going to kind of make a bold statement here that's not actually true. This is false. But I was going to say that you only really found fives and ones. That's absolutely not the case. But you found a great deal of music centered around 5-1 movement. This idea of a 5 chord, the dominant chord, which incidentally is where dominant sevens get their name from, this dominant chord going to the 1 chord, going to the tonic chord, and then creating a 5 chord so that we could move to a different tonic chord. For example, we got a question from Trucker 0458 saying, why not the 6? Let's take a listen. Right? The reason why not the 6, let me tell you, right? Here's probably why. So if we take a look at the notes that are in our 5 chord, because this is going to be important, right? We'll take a major key in this case. We're in the key of E. We have E, B, and G sharp making up the notes of our 1 chord. My 1 chord is out of tune, but let me fix that. There's my 1 chord. In my 5 chord, the B is common, but I also have an F sharp, that's not in there. Sorry, I have a D sharp, an F sharp, neither of which are in the 1 chord. I have an A, none of these are in the 1 chord. This feels very different to this. Whereas the 6 chord has a very similar function and a very similar tonal quality to our 1 chord. We can resolve very confidently on the 6 chord. Let me play you progression and resolve on the 6. Yeah, we can live there. Let me resolve on the 5. Resolve. It won't resolve, I'll just finish. It's up in the air. It's a big musical cliffhanger, right? Shouldn't have turned that volume pot off. I'm gonna have to do something with this. If I have to abandon the guitar, I will. I've got plenty. So you know, here is this. I was just about to tell this story, right? You have you have I don't know if it was Mozart. I heard it with Johann Christian Bach, who was Bach's son. But yes, it's the same story, right? So apparently, whoever it was, this little musical prodigy, would go and play the dominant 7 on a piano and then close the lid, in the knowledge that like their father would have to get up and play the tonic, so that we have to resolve this. It's the equivalent of this if you knock on somebody's door and you go. Who else can feel their skin crawling? I can. Let's do it again. Oh, come on. It's like, you need to resolve it. You need to resolve it. So the thing we're talking about would be something like this. You know, you come in at night and you go, oh, this volume pot is it's had better days. I wired this myself, so that's why I think we are experiencing a failing pot. Poor guitar, poor guitar. I have other pots, I'll get another. Let me just get rid of this. Let me grab a different instrument so you can live here. We'll have the McCartney 594 for today. You can go and join the PRS over here. I'll fix that later. So strange how these things sometimes just go. There didn't seem to be any indication that was going, but there we are. So I'm going to finish this story because this story is cool. Oh, I've set the cameras up for a longer guitar than the one I'm holding, but never mind. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'll just retune this one because this room's been quite cold, so it's getting a bit... It's a little bit out of tune. So I'll finish this story and then we'll talk about what we can do with this, right? So, because there's another thing we need to talk about. So, okay, we're in the 594. There we go. Okay, here's the thing, right? So it's a bit like doing this. You come in and you go... I would have to get up and do this. Whew, whew, hideous. The 5 chord is a chord that is, by its very nature, tense. It creates the propulsion that we then use to create the resolution of the 1 chord. It is the whole nature of Western music. It is tense, unstable sounds versus stable sounds. Now, here's what we do with it, right? The 5 chord is an interesting beast because we have lots of options that we can use for soloing over the 5 chord. Let's take an example of the 5 chord in a minor key, because this is an interesting one because it requires us to do something different in our minor key. Now, let's take the example of the chord progression I was just playing in E minor, this blues chord progression we've got going on here. Now, there's a very strong 5-1 movement in the middle of this progression, right? And the progression is this. It's in the key of E minor, and we have the following. We have A minor 7, might be A minor 9, going to E minor. So it's 4 to 1. Then we have this movement, G, which in this case is the flat 3 major. Then we have the 5 chord. Here's an interesting observation. All of those chords pulled their harmony directly from E minor, which is E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. Now, the D in question for this chord, this 5 chord in the minor key, the D note is here. That is a D sharp. D sharp tells us that our chord is no longer strictly in the minor key. Doesn't contain this D, it contains this D sharp. What is that telling us? It tells us that at the minimum, we need to make an alteration to this note, which leads me to our first option. You're playing in the minor key, you come across a 5 chord, here is survival mechanism number 1, because this is one of the questions that you folks have been asking is, how do I deal with this 5 chord? Well, the first one is if you're playing in a minor key, you switch to the harmonic minor. Why harmonic minor? Because the harmonic minor maps to the majority of the 5 chords that we tend to find. The 5 chord in this case in our minor key is a dominant 5 chord. And this is usually what you find. Even though the scale would suggest the 5 chord would be minor, we usually find that we end up playing a dominant 5 chord. It's just one of those quirks, because dominant 5 chords feel so strong moving to the 1, moving to the tonic. We just want to use them. And there's a good reason for that. So, our first survival strategy, harmonic minor. Let me show you this in context against our backing track, right? You'll hear it on that G and then B7 movement. And what I'll play is I'll play this. This is our natural minor. If you want to play along, it's going to be 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9 on A string, D string, G string, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 9. I will make the change from 7 to 8. This in terms of scale degrees is our flat 7 becoming a raised 7. That's the difference between the natural minor, or the Aeolian scale, and the harmonic minor. Not only will I change this note from this to this, I will emphasize this note. I'm really going to point that note out. Let's take a listen against our backing track. Here we go. Natural minor all the way to begin with. I've faded it out. Let me just bring it back in for you. Here we go. Just setting the scene for you. This is all fairly standard stuff. This is the 4 chord going to the 1 chord. Couldn't resist. Here it comes. I'm going to change it. And so on we go. Now, the harmonic minor is such a good choice for this, because if we are playing in a minor key and we get this 5 chord, this 5 dominant chord, it is the least stuff that we need to change to make the dominant 7 on the 5 chord happen. We change one note and it moves us from natural minor to harmonic minor. It works so well. This should be your first port of call. Your first port of call when it comes to playing in minor keys if you don't know what to do over the 5 chord. An interesting thing happens in a major key, because in a major key, we actually don't really need to change anything. We can just carry on blustering on in our major key and just emphasize certain notes within the key, which in this case would be the notes of the chord, but we don't need to change anything, because a dominant chord on this 5 is naturally occurring. Let me show you in the case of my ballad that I've got going on here. This is quite a nice one because it has a 5 chord. The ambient ballad in E major has a 5 chord in the chorus section. Let me show you where it is. Let me find this section, because this has a very strong 5 chord resolution at the end. So we're also in the key of E major. So in this case we go as follows. We go 2 chord, 1 chord in its first inversion, 4 chord, and then 5 chord. Let me show you what happens when we hit that 5 chord. I don't need to change anything. It just works. Here's my major scale. Let's get a bit of gain with this. Chord. And everything remains basically exactly the same. Don't need to change a single sausage. In the minor key, however, we must change things. So this is step 1. Major, you don't need to change anything. You can, but you don't need to change anything. In the minor key, if we get a 5 chord and the 5 chord is dominant, which we hear all of the time, we switch to harmonic minor. Let's put this to the test. We're going to go back to our minor backing track, which was our slow blues backing track. By the way, all these backing tracks are available on licklibrary.com. If you want to go and get these backing tracks, that's where you can go to get them. So let me just quickly find this again. I've got this huge project that is far too full of tracks, and I need to make some serious edits to it. Where is my slow blues? Where have you gone? I shouldn't have got rid of that. That's my ambient ballad. It's somewhere north of here. Huge track. Give me a second to find this. There it is. Slow blues E minor. Okay, if you guys can see this project, it's immense. It's just so full of backing tracks. Okay, very quickly, let's find this again. So we go natural minor for everything until it's the 5 chord. just playing loads of notes here for no good reason. Let's carry on playing loads of notes. Let's get the harmonic minor here. Now that was a very Malmsteen coded harmonic minor, but it worked just fine. There's another example coming up here. And it's right here. I'm sure you'll agree, that works a treat. Now, this leads me into a really great comment that we're actually going to build from our friend Nick's Corsair S1 tips. Very cool. A good idea is to analyze the semitonal movement from your G to your B7. Now, this is the whole point with this, right? Absolutely. There are several strong semitones that move from the we're going to go from 5 chord to 1 chord in this instance, but that's another good, interesting movement. We like a bit of that. So, very quickly, let me talk about what we're going on here. I'm going to reframe this as the 5 chord going to the 1 chord. Let's look at the notes that are in here and see what's going on. We've got lots of strong movements. So, the A is becoming the G. Or it could be becoming the B. The D sharp is becoming the E. There's a movement. There's a movement. There's a movement. The B stays where it is. And our F sharp, which is here in this case, can either become the E or it can become the G. The point with this is one of the reasons why this resolution works so well, is there are so many little movements within. Now, let's talk about a strategy that we might use where we could exploit these semitones, which is strategy number 2. Now, this is a strategy that will fly. You'll have to excuse me, we've got all sorts of technical disasters going on today, including dropping of plectrums. Let's grab that again. So the strategy we're going to use now will work very well over minor. May not work quite so well over major, but it's something you can do. I wouldn't necessarily encourage it, but you can do it, which is to do the following. Over your 5 chord, you can play the following. Here's a great question. Does one ever say Phrygian dominant? Yeah, sure. So when you play the 5 chord, if you play the harmonic minor of E over B7, it gives you Phrygian dominant. So yes, you could say it was B Phrygian dominant. That's just another way of referring to it. While we're on the subject of distinctions here, here's a good question. How do you identify the distinction between modern blues, jazz, and fusion? I think it's in the expression and the expressive choices and rhythmic choices that are being used. In jazz, we don't get so much of this. I think in addition to this, we see certain expressive language and fusion that you don't necessarily see in blues. Another big distinction is in the tones, the sounds that are being used. Fusion, by its very essence, being a fusion of jazz and rock, or jazz and funk, is another example. But in jazz, the other thing with this, in addition to the blues fusion, blues jazz thing, is choices for resolutions. So you find in modern blues, a great deal of resolution on tonics. So we tend to, for example, if we took a 2-5-1 in a modern blues context, let's say we took a minor 2-5-1. A blues player might resolve that on the tonic, as opposed to resolving it on the 3rd, resolving it in the 9th. And so on and so forth. I could be glib and say it's all to do with the guitar player's outfit. I'm not going to do that. I could be very glib and say that modern fusion is usually faked by Italians on Instagram. But that's another. I'm joking. I'm only kidding. Especially kidding to our Italian friends who are watching. We love you guys. Anyway, so just one of you in particular we don't love so much. But that's neither here nor there. You all know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots in there. The rhythmic language, choices of resolutions, choices of expression, choice of tone as well. Jazz is a big separation there. So anyway, we were talking about this other strategy we can use. This works really well in minor. It works less well in major, but it also does work. And it can also work in the context of our blues, where we go from a 5 chord to a dominant 1 chord. That's in the context of a 12-bar blues in the dominant key, let's say, which is quite common, the most common type of blues. This strategy is as follows. We can outline the notes of our 5 chord, but we can also introduce an extra little movement that maybe wasn't there previously. Now, in this case, the movement was as follows. If you remember from previously, we had this business, where this becomes this, where this becomes this, but our B just kind of stayed put. Well, we can introduce a note like C into our dominant chord, which now gives us an additional resolution. Now, if we map out the notes that we're dealing with here, this gives our dominant chord a flat 9. So we could call this a 7 flat 9. And we can just do this because this chord can withstand tension. It works if you pull to major. It's a bit crispy. It works very well if you pull to minor. It works if you pull in the blues. That works too. The notes here of our dominant chord with our flat 9 are as follows. There's B, C, D sharp, F sharp, A. Can anyone see what's going on here? They're a minor third apart. They're a minor third apart. They're a minor third apart. If we miss off the B and go from here to here, they're a minor third apart. Would you look at that? It's a diminished 7th arpeggio. Now, the diminished 7th arpeggio works beautifully well over our 5 chord because it outlines the notes of a 7 flat 9 chord without actually playing the B. So we don't need to play B at all. The way we can play this is we can take any of the notes of a 7 flat 9, which are the flat 9, the major third is a good place to go, the 5th is a good place to go, the 7th is a good place to go. These are all relative to B. We can play a diminished 7th arpeggio from any of these notes. So you can just think about it, if you want a little shortcut, you can think about it as playing a diminished 7th arpeggio that has some, or at least one of its notes, on the note below the one that you're about to resolve to. You're about to resolve to an E, start one below that with your diminished arpeggio, and it will work. Let me show you how this sounds in the context of our blues backing track. Let me play this diminished 7th arpeggio over the top, and I'll show you what it is as well. If you want me to show you a fingering for it, I can. I'll show you how it flies in the context of our backing track. Here we go. A little cheeky harmonic minor there, because why not? Here we go. Let's get it up the next one too. on and so forth. It works surprisingly well. Does it work over the major key? Well, let's give it a try, right? Maybe not quite so strongly, because it makes the dominant chord quite crunchy in our major key, but it will work. We can make this fly. So let's go to the major ballad that we had just a second ago, and let's find that chorus section, which was somewhere around here. I'll hit this over the 5 chord. You'll find the resolution. Ooh, if I'm careful about the resolution, it'll work. So it might give us this. It does work. It's a little crispy, but it can work just fine. Again, the reasoning for this is because it is outlining the notes of this chord, which is a dominant 7 with a flat 9. Let me just find a clean tone and show you that again. Dominant 7 with a flat 9. Here we go. Just one of the many places we could play it. We can take this flat 9 and use it with relative impunity. We can just make this chord altered if we want to. Now, this is an example of a chord that we may call, in this instance, B7 alt. I've just realized I've got like a semi-transparent face, which was kind of horrifying through that little picture-in-picture thing. So we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to highlight this one from a friend, Paul, who says, what was that hybrid picking lick? I think I know what you're talking about. It was kind of, I say a lick, it's not really a lick so much as it's like kind of a way that I'll navigate through a scale with hybrid picking. It's like a Richie Kotzen thing. Now, what I like about the way Richie does this stuff is Richie will just kind of like free flow with this. But what I'm playing in essence, mate, is I'm playing the notes of E minor on the A string and the G string, and I'm playing 2 notes with legato on the A string, and then I'm going to move the question very quickly so we can see my hand. In fact, maybe I'll go to quickly just go to these 2 cameras because we haven't used this camera in a while. I'm using hybrid picking and like a barring technique, a rowing technique to get at least one of the notes on the G string, and I'm playing with some kind of rhythmic thing. And the top note may be the 3rd finger or 4th finger roll. It may be a 1st finger, but the point is it's alternating 2 notes on a lower string with 1 note on a higher string. And sometimes I'll throw in that just as like a little rhythmic figure. It's a little like if you're tapping and you get this kind of thing. You just throw it in willy-nilly to make it rhythmic. There's also this little diving figure. If you take the same idea and you play it up here, it's extremely Richie, and we can also do it with this 3-finger thing. So on and so forth. It's a cool lick. I didn't mean to interrupt our talk on 5-1 chords to show you a cool lick, but couldn't resist while it was on my mind. Anyway, 5 chords and 5-1 altered. This is where things get interesting because when we are playing 5 chord, we have the option as composers and as the option as rhythm players to take this 5 chord and make it another special kind of 5 chord or a special kind of dominant chord. And in this case, it's what we might call a functional dominant chord, characterized by being a 5 chord that is going to a 1 chord. Let me show you some examples where we have a 5 chord that goes to a 1 chord and a 5 chord that doesn't. Let's take a blues in the key of E, right? So blues in the key of E. 1 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord. 5 chord, not going to a 1 chord. So that 5 chord there is going to our 4 chord. This is not a functional dominant chord because it doesn't resolve to the 1. The one that appears later that can be a functional dominant chord. And what we mean by this is it's a chord that can withstand being turned into an altered chord. What makes it an altered chord? Well, we do the following. We retain the root, the flat 7 and the 3rd, and we apply any or all of the following. Flat 5, sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 9. I'll say it again. Flat 5, sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 9. The most common ones being the sharp 5, the flat 9 and the sharp 9. The flat 5 is less common, but we can do it. So what we might get is a chord like this. Really beautiful chord. In this case, it's a chord that we describe as B7, sharp 5, flat 9. Some people will call it flat 13, flat 9, sharp 5, sharp 9. I'm not going to say potato, potato, because it's not. But that's what's going on here. That, in turn, pulls exceptionally strongly to any one of our 1 chords. Be they dominant, be they major, be they minor. They pull exceptionally strongly. Now, we can construct a scale out of these notes because let's take a look at how many notes are in the scale. We've got the root, we've got the 3rd, and we've got the flat 7. There's 3. And then we have flat 5, sharp 5, flat 9, sharp 9. 7 notes, which means we can make a 7-note scale out of all of the potential alterations to our 5 chord. And this scale is one that exists, and it is the Superlocrian scale. The Superlocrian scale. Now let me make a distinction here. We, up until now, have taken the idea of playing the 1 chord and playing the 5 chord with some scale that is related to the 1. So we play E harmonic minor, for example. You cannot play a version of the Superlocrian that is related to the 1 because the Superlocrian does not contain the 1 note that you're about to resolve to. It's one of the reasons why it pulls so strongly. Ways you might think about it. If we're in the key of key of E, my mistake, playing a B5 chord, we could think about it as C melodic minor. So if you play the melodic minor from the flat 9 of your dominant chord, your 5 chord, which in totality comes out as the flat 6 of the 1 that you're about to resolve to, you can get the result that we're looking for, which might give us this sound. Now this is it's a big part of jazz language. So if you have this, C harmonic minor, it pulls exceptionally strongly to our 1 chord. Now let me show you an action, and then I'll show you some tricks for getting this into your playing, because there is a really cheap little shortcut that you can use to bake a bit of Superlocrian into your playing. Now for reference, I'll play it here if anyone wants to play along. So this is my C note. If I were to play C harmonic minor, I can get the following. I could play, starting on B, 5, sorry, what am I talking about? 5, that's the 5 chord. Fret numbers, 7, 8, 10, 6, 8, 10, 7, 9, 10, 7, 8, 10, 8, 10, 12, 8, 10, 11. C harmonic minor. But it's also this. which in case you haven't spotted, is C minor 6 over B. Just a little semantic point. Interesting. When you get into this stuff, it all sort of kind of becomes, a lot of it becomes the same. So I'll play that over our B chord, but then I'll show you something nice and easy that we can use as a little cheat to get into the Superlocrian thing. So here we go, over the 5-chord Superlocrian this time. And what you'll notice is this one is way more jazz sounding than our other examples. When I say more jazz sounding, I mean the Superlocrian bit, not this bit here. Well, let me get in position so we can hit this in the place that we talked about. Here's the G. And I'll play the scale here. Did you catch that big resolution? It's a beautiful thing. Let's get it again this second time round. It's a fantastic scale. If you know your Superlocrian mode, you can play Superlocrian over the 5 chord and have it just work, because it implies all of the alterations that are potentially possible for our 5 dominant chord. But it only works, I hasten to add this, it only works if you're actually going to go to the 1 chord. If you're going to go anywhere but the 1 chord, it sounds pretty terrible. Let me show you this example where this blues has a 5 chord that doesn't go to the 1 chord. It's at the end of this. So there's one where it does and one where it doesn't. Here we go. Now I'll play it over this next 5 chord, which goes to the 4 chord. Kind of saved it, but it's a bit weird. The reason for this is that we usually only allow a 5 chord to be altered dominant, to be a functional dominant, if it's going to a 1 chord. But this works in major, it works in minor, it works in blues, it works in all of these contexts. Let me show you a little shortcut for this. If you're sat going, holy, insert expletive here, Nick, that's a lot of scale to learn. Well, it is, but a little shortcut, do the following. Credit to Rick Graham for it's something we've all done, but Rick was credited for like putting this in just a really lovely short little way of explaining it. Do the following. Take the minor pentatonic scale in root position. When it's time to play the 5 chord, just take all the root notes and move them down. So you get this. So this E note becomes D sharp, this E note becomes D sharp, this E note becomes D sharp, which gives us this. Check it out, this is really, really simple, but it works. Let me just play the scale from top to bottom for you. And I'm going to hit it from the G chord, I think. Here we go. It just works. It just works. It's a wonderful thing. Now, let's recap on this, because these are the strategies that we've talked about, right? You've got the following. If you're in a major key, you don't actually need to do anything. You can, but you don't need to do anything. If you are in minor and you come across this 5 chord and it is dominant, just switch to harmonic minor. Just briefly, over that chord, all is well. Consider using a diminished 7th arpeggio over the top. You do this from any of the notes of your 5 chord apart from the root note. Great comment. Magical and much easier, says Citizen714. It absolutely is. It's such an easy little shortcut, right? I use this with all my students to just get them into the Super Locrian sound, so to speak, and then we just start colouring in the other notes as we need. It's a lovely little shortcut, right? It really is great. And it's super simple to learn. Super simple to learn. So yeah, I think it's a great choice if you're just dipping your toe into this particular sound. Because if you don't know the sound of the scale, it's very hard to navigate through. Anyway, diminished sevenths. So diminished seventh started from the flat 9, the 3rd, the 5th, or the flat 7 of the chord that you're playing. So B7, you would start from a C, you'd start from a D sharp, you'd start it from an F sharp, you'd start from an A. Any of those, it'll give you the same note. So diminished seventh, that works in major, it also works in minor. Super Locrian scale. Wow, that's a big one. You play the harmonic minor 1 step up. Sorry, I digress. I've said that wrong. Melodic minor is what I'm trying to say. You play the melodic minor 1 step up from the chord that you're playing over. If you're playing B7 going to E, you play C melodic minor. Or you can treat it as its own scale, the Super Locrian scale, which contains the following, out of interest. Very interesting scale degrees here, because what we can probably think about this as is we can think about it as root, flat 9, root, flat 9, sharp 9, 3, flat 5, sharp 5, 7. I'll say that again. Root, flat 9, sharp 9, 3, flat 5, sharp 5, 7. Obviously, that's not the scale degrees. Scale degrees are as follows. 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. Everything's flat apart from the 1. That's another way to think about it. It's flat everything. Its formula is 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. But once again, it gives us 1, flat and sharp 9s, 3, flat and sharp 5s, flat 7. Super Locrian. But of course we can use our shortcut, which is to take the minor pentatonic of the 1 chord and just move all the tonics, all of the E's in this case, down by 1 semitone. You take one thing from this stream, let that be it. It's such a nice, easy way to do this. These are increasing levels of jazzness, folks. It's probably the way to think about it. So harmonic minor is probably the least jazz way to play this. Diminished seventh is occasionally a jazz thing, but it's less so. Super Locrian, very jazz. In fact, so much so it is the jazz scale of choice to play over altered dominant scales. That is not to say that every time there's an altered dominant chord, every jazz musician ever plays it, but it is certainly the default. Now, one last example we might use is we might take 2 diminished chords next to each other. What is this? Well, let me show you. This is just a little scale, fun little scale, really good fun. We already talked about the idea of playing a diminished chord, a semitone up from the chord we're playing on. So there's B, C diminished seventh. If we take C diminished seventh and B diminished seventh and play them simultaneously, this gives us a scale that is made up of 8 notes, which are 2 overlapping diminished seventh chords. In this case, the scale is as follows. This is a scale that we call the half-whole diminished scale, but it's actually not really scale. It's 2 diminished seventh arpeggios in a trench coat, pretending to be a scale, so they can get into the cinema on 1 ticket. You can phrase it as such. You can phrase it as a bunch of diminished seventh arpeggios, or you can phrase it as its own scale, which has a lovely symmetrical fingering that reads across the top 4 strings, starting on the D string, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, with the first finger on the high string being the tonic of the chord you're playing on, but it also repeats in 3 fret intervals, like a diminished arpeggio. Oh. And on it goes, a bitonal 8-note hybrid arpeggio. That is like so good. That is like the feathered biped definition of man. But it's what it is. Like, it's true. It's true. It's true. I still prefer the 2 diminished seventh in a trench coat pretending to be a scale way of thinking about it. But that's what it is. This works really well because it outlines most of the sticky notes that are in our flat 7. We haven't got a huge amount of time to get into diminished scales. If you want to talk about that in another stream, we will. But let's see how this diminished, half whole diminished from B works in our B7 example. There's the lick again, guys. Maximum Kotzen. Play it here. Quite a fun lick because there's all these symmetrical possibilities for it. Now, it's not the only use for this scale, but it's a fun scale nonetheless. So consider that a little bonus. Guys, we're running clean out of time, but I'm gonna take a couple of very quick questions because we always do questions. But I'm going to take just a handful of them, right? And we'll make them quick questions. Anything we miss, we'll grab on next week's stream because we're going to kind of continue these out. So I want to answer this one. This is a great one from Marcin because why not? This is you have so many guitars in the studio, but what do you play at home? It's a good question. So I have a nice acoustic that I play at home. I have a nice Taylor acoustic that I've had for a while, and I sit and play that at home. Had that for a good while now, and it's really nice. And I also have an Aria PE40, PE480. Sorry, PE480 is the guitar. That's my home electric that I sit and practice in because this studio is not my home. This is not where I live. I wish I did, because it's a cool place, but this is a rented studio space. This is not it's not my house. But I got plenty of guitars. I also will take guitars home during term time because my students often want to see cool guitars. So, for example, I might bring this in to visit them. I might actually take that in this week. We'll see. So if I have a guitar home, I'll do that. Sometimes what I'll do as well, if there's a review guitar that's come to me directly, like say, for example, this Jet guitar over here, which is actually a really nice fiddle. This Jet guitar that you may have seen a review of on the Guitar Interactive YouTube channel. I'll take this home for a little while. And because the box for it is at my house. So if this is one that's come to me, if it's come to the studio in London, that's different. But if it's come to me directly, the box is in my house, so I need to box it up. So I'll just leave it outside the box and let me sit play with it for a while, for, you know, a few weeks until it gets picked up or whatever. So this one actually I might take home tonight. We'll see. So I have that Aria guitar. That is the one that I play all the time in my house. That is my designated home guitar. I also have that acoustic that I talked about. Love sitting and playing that. That's kind of a front room guitar. And then last but not least, I have I have the rotation of guitars that occasionally come in. It's a cool question though, man. Definitely worth asking. We love talking about gear. What about secondary dominance? 2 weeks time. We'll talk about that. 2 weeks time. So come back and see us. Come back and see us next week. Come back and see us 2 weeks time because we love a bit of that. Folks, I'm going to have to go. We've run over time. It's been a lot of fun. My name's Nick Jennison. If you haven't done so already, hit all the appropriate YouTube buttons on whichever channel you happen to be watching on. We love it because it helps us get this out to as many guitar players as we possibly can. We're going to continue this on next week. We'll be talking about some logical continuation of the 5-chord thing. But in the meantime, let me jam out one more time over this backing track, see how many of the strategies that we use today that you can spot. And I will see you guys next week. Here we go.